I stopped playing Where Winds Meet because of the restrictive progression system, RNG gear system and lack of meaningful endgame activities. Today I'm returning to see if those issues have actually been fixed. When Where Winds Meet launched, a lot of players, including myself, loved the world and the combat, but many stopped playing because of gear and progression issues and lack of variety in the endgame content. In recent months, the game has received some major updates to these systems. But are these changes enough to make former players return? I spent the last 2 days returning to the game to find out. The game had a couple of major issues at launch. When it comes to endgame content, the activities were repetitive and the energy system made grinding or PvE farming non-existent. In terms of progression pacing, the game was actively preventing the players from playing. There were too many caps on currencies, experience farming and material farming, which meant your character progression was time-gated. The level breakthrough system was making all the time you spend farming for gear completely pointless, as you would have to start from scratch every time a new level cap was introduced. The gear system was a mess. There was too much RNG involved in getting a good set of gear. The system was clearly designed around min-maxing, but that was impossible due to the energy system and level breakthrough system. Items that allowed you to re-roll and try to min-max your gear were very rare and time-gated. These are some of the things I have been evaluating during my return. The first thing I noticed after logging in was the Swallow's Return event, which consisted of a series of bonuses and perks that allowed you to easily catch up with everyone else and make up for the time you didn't play the game. The event lasts 2 weeks after you return, which is plenty of time to get back on track. You get a ton of gear and progression materials by completing this event, which will put you in a good spot to farm the latest endgame activities. There is also a season catch-up shop where you can buy a ton of gear and materials to level up your skills. For the duration of the catch-up event, you also get double drops. You can essentially double the speed of farming gear, materials and experience. I am not sure how long this event lasts, but coming back now with all these catch-up mechanics seems like the best time to do it. Another thing that is a great improvement is the Goose Greeting event. Any unspent energy that goes over the energy cap will be converted into energy beads, which you can use whenever you want to actually spend energy to farm, which means no more fear of missing out when you stop playing the game. There is a new auto sweep system which allows you to use sweep talismans to instantly clear campaign challenges or outposts. You can obtain up to 60 of these per week, which equals to 1800 energy worth of instantly clearing content. This means that even if you don't have a lot of time to play the game, you can now just log in, do a quick sweep of the content using all of your energy and log out. I was able to reach max level and get a full set of almost perfect gear in just 2 days after coming back, which is just amazing. What is there to do now that wasn't there before? We have new regions with new content that have been added in the past couple of months. The Hexi DLC brought us 3 new massive regions, each with their own exploration activities. Last week, the new Kaifeng Imperial Palace update just dropped, which is a pretty large new region. All of these new areas come with a ton of side activities to complete and of course new boss fights. As a returning player, here's what actually stood out. They added a new PvE event for the guild called Skyward Bond, where you can fight bosses with your guild members to earn amazing progression and cosmetic rewards. Besides this, there are no actual new types of endgame activities, which was a bit disappointing to see. However, we have confirmation of some massive news. Later this month, we are getting not 1 but 2 new endgame PvE modes. We are getting the Martial Path domain, which will be a 5-man party teaming up for a tower-like game mode, and the Tomb Raiding PvE activity, which we don't know much about yet. Overall, this is exactly what I wanted to see from the game, a variety of endgame activities, and it looks like we are finally getting it. Now, in case you're wondering, will I hit the same wall that made me quit? Let's discuss leveling, gearing, build variety and progression. When it comes to the leveling system, it's mostly the same except a major difference. Previously, when the level cap was raised, you would have to farm all of your gear again from scratch because there was no way to raise the tier of your gear to the new cap. Well, now they finally added a system called relaying, where you can increase the tier of your gear to the next available tier, which solves the massive issue of having to grind for new gear every time and losing your perfect gear. Now you can focus on min-maxing a set of gear and keep using that forever and ever, which is just perfect. When it comes to the gear system, it's mostly the same except a few major changes. When the Hexi update came a few months ago, they added a retuning and reattunement system, where you can reroll one tuning attribute of your choice and the attunement attribute as well. The problem was that you could only do it once per item and that's it, which was completely pointless, and you could only do it 3 times per week, due to how limited those materials were. Now, they allow you to reroll the same attribute again once per week, and the materials required for that are much easier to obtain, allowing you to obtain a min-max set of gear much easier. Of course, it's still far away from being ideal, but overall it's a much better experience. They also reduced a lot of the costs of converting and resetting inner ways and martial arts, so now you can switch your builds much easier and cheaper than before. When it comes to build variety, the game now has a total of 8 different martial arts paths, with the latest additions being the Bambuka Dust and a Stone Spit Strength path. And guess what? In July, we are also getting the new Gauntlet weapon with its corresponding martial arts path, which is one of the most anticipated weapons in the game. When it comes to progression, like I mentioned before, everything is much easier and better now. You can progress your character infinitely without worrying about any level resets, you can switch your builds almost for free, and you can farm more and better gear easier. And last but not least, they just had a massive balancing patch recently, which completely changed everything about all martial arts and inner ways, especially for PvP. I'm not gonna go into details about the patch notes, but all you need to know is that every single martial art got some massive buffs, and they are all stronger, especially in PvE. There have also been a ton of balancing changes done for arena modes to reduce frustration and improve the overall experience. I will leave the link to the balancing patch notes in the video description if you want to read them. Now, probably the most important questions: is there enough to do after reaching progression milestones? Are endgame activities rewarding? And do they encourage long-term play? I think that the game is now in a better spot than it was 2 or 3 months ago, and it still has a long way to go. I would say that if you enjoy exploration, there is enough to do, but if you only want endgame PvE activities, the game still doesn't offer enough in that aspect. The endgame is mostly the same, nothing has really changed, however it appears they have big plans for a massive update in July that will expand on the endgame activities. Most of the newly added events in the game are also much more rewarding than before, allowing you to obtain progression and upgrade materials by participating. In July, we will most likely find out if the game is going to have a resurrection or not, with the addition of the new endgame modes, the new region and the new weapon. Here is a comparison between launch and now of the game's most important aspects. The gear system went from a 4 at launch to an 8 now, the progression system went from a 6 at launch to an 8 now, and the endgame went from a 4 at launch to a 6 now. Overall, it's definitely better, but they still have a ton of work to do in order to get it where it needs to be. And now, is it worth returning to the game? I would say return if you loved exploration, if you enjoyed combat, and if you quit because of the gear and progression systems. I would say to wait until the July update if you only care about hardcore endgame content. And I would say don't return if the core combat never appealed to you, or if you dislike the game's fundamental design. Where Winds Meet isn't a completely different game than it was at launch. But after spending 2 days back in the world, as a veteran player who has over 1000 hours in the game, I can confidently say it has fixed most of the reasons that caused a ton of people to stop playing. The deciding factor will be the July update, which has the potential to raise the game to a much higher tier. If you're still on the fence about coming back, I suggest giving it another try now, since there are a ton of events going on, and then wait for the July update to make the final decision. I will continue to make content for the game in the upcoming days and weeks, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.